You're listening to a 4x4 Radio Network podcast.
The Centresteer Podcast, a Land Rover podcast by Land Rover owners. Welcome to the Centresteer Podcast, show number 59 for February 2018, the first Land Rover podcast on the planet. This is a podcast by, for, and about Land Rover owners. I'm your host, John Kostic, from the studios outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's not Pittsburgh, Tennessee, Mr. Graham Bell. Joining me via Skype is Harold from the Keystone State.
Hello.
We thought we were going to have Morgan and Mike today, but Morgan's not available, and I think because of for work purposes, but be sure to check out seriesparts.com. And Mike was going to join us, but he's trying to sell is he trying to sell a Morgan, or was it a Triumph?
No, it's Triumph Spitfire.
So he has a customer, or I guess a possible buyer coming to him, so he's not available to join the show. But be sure to check out justbritish.com for all your British make model needs.
We're going to have to grill him about that next time because, we need some Triumph content every now and then.
Our guest this month is Bruce Fowler. He's host of the Maine Winter Romp. A special thanks to our monthly Patreon subscribers. Your support really does help the show, especially with domain management and website hosting. Visit Patreon, that's patreon.com/Centresteer for all the details. Also, thanks for your likes, follows, and messages on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and email. We did get an Instagram comment from Baron. Thank you, Baron. And in fact, I think, Baron, I should send you a sticker, so be sure to send me your address, and I'll ship you out a sticker. But Baron, after listening to our last show when Nigel went to the Land Rover Experience in Vermont, Baron was sure to tell us that the Quail Lodge in California does have a small gift shop.
If it's a Quail Lodge, be prepared to spend a lot of money.
Are you keeping up with the bells? Well, they're on the move again, and presently in Turkey. They have joined Patreon also, I think within the last couple of weeks.
About to jump on the ferry, which would leave Europe and take them to Asia. When you get to Istanbul, you jump on the little ferry across the Bosporus, and you are no longer in Europe. You're in Asia.
That's right. We just wanted to say Bosporus.
Yeah, that could be. But nonetheless, then they will have achieved the second A in their name.
That's right. The changing A in their name.
Yes. Now I have to come up with some more A's because they've done the list.
That's right. Well, I guess Australia maybe would be next.
Yeah, there you go.
So if you join their Patreon, you would be, and I'm reading from their Patreon here, you're the first to see A to A expedition videos, access the Patreon-only feed in Graham speak. Our people, you are the oil in our engine, the diesel in our tank. You are our sole providers. Official Patreon status means you'll get access to our Patreon-only feed, bonus videos, and our endless appreciation for joining our team. So go check out patreon.com/A2A expedition, and you can support the bells as they travel the planet.
As long as it doesn't replace the books.
No, I don't believe so. I don't believe that's the case.
This is supplemental content.
How about enhanced content?
Additional?
Are we coming up with additional ways now?
Something like that. Yes, there you go.
Before we get to the news, we need to mention the passing of a Land Rover enthusiast, Torsten Delventhal. Mike Whittier provided these comments about Torsten to the show. Torsten was a real nomad, a lone wolf. He loved Land Rovers, his dog Sheeta, and he loved nature. He enjoyed his photography and spent many hours out with his camera. He was very passionate about the Middle East and Arabia. He spent several years working out there. In his spare time, he organized guided tours in the desert, Sheeta tours. Torsten loved the overland lifestyle. He'd been in the U.S., Japan, China. He was a kind-hearted guy and ready to help anyone. He wanted to come all the way to the Gambia with us in 2014, but spending time in Europe with Tracy felt better. And now joining us on the show is Tracy, the very one that Mike spoke about. Hi, Tracy. Thanks for coming on the show, and sorry for your loss.
Yeah, thanks, John.
So tell us about Torsten. How did you two meet?
Yeah, on Facebook in 2012, and then we got to become close friends. And then we planned the trip to Gambia with Mike Whittier and the group.
And you did not go on the trip then, I take it.
Yeah, I went all through Spain and Portugal with Torsten.
Oh, that sounds really cool. And you traveled in his Land Rover?
Yeah, his 110. Well, he had a tent on the top of it. We spent quite a few nights out wherever we could park it and had camp coffee and fixed meals out there. And then we lost Mike in the group once, and his Gertrude, we named his Garmin, ended us off on a little dirt road. And so he had a sense of humor. So we were pretending that we were dodging minefields, and we just laughed, and we finally found the group later that night.
Sounds like a typical Land Rover person. Let's go off.
And it wouldn't be the first time a GPS has put you in the wrong place.
No, it took us way out in the boonies.
That's there's a little history there. Our local club likes to go on trips, and on more than one occasion, the GPS has put certain members of our contingent on the opposite side of the river from the rest of us.
Did he name his Land Rover, by the way? Many do.
Yeah, no, he didn't have a name for it. I was really shocked.
I know I haven't named mine either, but I know many do. Can you tell us a little more about what are the Sheeta tours? So that was him traveling in the desert. Was that with Land Rovers or with a community, or did he go by himself?
To me, my knowledge, he is by himself. He might have met friends. He had a 90 back in then. It was a green one. That's all I pretty much know, except for the pictures that he had from Jordan and Oman, and he loved that country.
Yeah, it sounds like he liked to travel a lot. Did you ever yourself get to Africa with Torsten or on your own?
No, we never did. We just got to the end of Spain, and then they got on the ferry and went over, and then that's when we went back up and through Portugal and kind of discovered that part of the country a little bit.
Yeah, I hear Portugal's a wonderful part of the world.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
And you went off-roading and camping and put the roof tent up, I take it?
Oh, yeah, several times.
Do you know if he got to come to the United States with his truck and tour through the U.S.?
No, I know he was at one part of the U.S. We always planned a trip, but it just didn't happen, No, he just didn't get the time.
Right.
So it sounds to me like you need to get your own and do some driving around. And good.
I do have a Land Rover, yeah.
So you can continue the legacy and do some traveling.
I can do that.
Excellent.
What do you drive? I think it's a 2A?
Yeah, 1968 2A.
Are you the original owner?
No. It was actually a chicken coop back in the day.
Right on.
There's a
So
story.
it got restored.
That sounds like a story.
Yeah, it was.
Is the smell gone yet?
It is.
Good.
It is. Yeah, it's in good shape now. But another one on the trip, it was funny because Mike Whittier, they were driving the ambulances down to donate to the Gambia. But we were traveling in back of him, me and Torsten, and his muffler caught on fire. And we kept going up to him. They thought we were just going to hand jerky because I made everybody jerky. And we were trying to tell him that his Land Rover was on fire. And we finally got him pulled over to the side of the road. And Torsten was a big hero there. He went and grabbed his extinguisher, and we got that out. And then Torsten found a piece of metal, and we got it wrapped around the muffler. So we proceeded to move on.
Yeah, that's not a good place to have a fire on those because the floor is made of plywood. So yeah, it's pretty spectacular if that muffler really gets going against that wood.
Yep.
Tracy, thanks very much for coming on the show and giving us a little bit of an understanding of Torsten. Sorry I didn't get to meet him or get to know him. Sounds like, in some ways, though, it sounds like I do know him because he sounds like almost every Land Rover owner that I've come across.
Yeah, he sounds fairly typical of the Land Rover experience. That's for sure.
Yeah. We were just stopped like at a gas station. He was really kind to animals. There were some stray dogs there, and I got pictures of him, and he was trying to feed them and give them water. He was just very kind, and he'd always like to stop at the side road. He loved his coffee, and so he'd always pull out his little camp stove, and every little while we'd have to sit and chat and have his coffee. He loved adventure, and he was a lone wolf. He is a great guy, and I'm going to miss him with all my heart.
Thanks very much, Tracy.
Thank you.
And now, the news for January 2018. JLR reports U.S. sales for January, and in the U.S., Land Rover sales increased 5%, but Jaguar decreased 11%. For the full year of 2017, and I realize I just said the month and we're going back to the year, but for 2017, JLR U.S. sales reached 114,333 units. That's up 9% compared to the previous year. Going back to brand highlights for the month, the Velar sold 1,522 units in January, making it the most popular vehicle among Jaguar and Land Rover buyers over the past 4 months since its introduction.
How does that compare with the platform donor of the Velar, let's say?
Is that the F-Pace?
Yes.
So interestingly, when I look at the article, thanks to Michael for his, because he puts all this on Just British. They don't give the numbers that they sold of the F-Pace last month. I did look for it. It's not in here.
Don't want to admit it?
I suspect that, which is,
I wonder if the world is getting tired of Jag producing SUVs.
No, I don't.
About frickin' time, but
no.
It's on the other hand, if they develop a platform that is doing well for Range Rover, then it's not entirely a bad thing.
I think you're the only one that wishes that to be the case. We have an article later here that shows that that's not the case. If you move into a JLR sales globally, profits were down 25% for Tata, mainly due to European and American declines in sales. The U.S. deliveries declined 2.4% in North America, so that would include the U.S. and Canada, and 3.4% in Europe. And China, their biggest market, while sales were in the positive, they had slowed to 15%. JLR last month said it will scale back production temporarily at the Halewood plant in northern England during the April-June quarters. As concerns about Brexit terms, future of combustion engines hurt customer confidence and sales. It didn't specify the size and planned time frame for the cutbacks. So there's I think a little bit of there's some pressure there on Land Rover, which we hadn't seen in probably a couple of years.
Well, but on the other hand, we've been expecting some various things to filter down from the Brexit.
Not specifically related to a Land Rover, this next article, but it does tie in, and you'll know why. Rising aluminum costs cut into Ford's profit. So Ford in the U.S. Has seen aluminum prices rise 20% in the past year and nearly 11% alone in December. Steel prices have risen just over 9%. Ford uses a lot of aluminum, more aluminum than any other vehicle than its rivals here in the United States. As you know, aluminum is lighter, but it's also more expensive than steel. Looks like it closed this past week at $2,229 per ton versus steel futures closing at $677 per ton. So it's almost, was that three times? 3 or 4 times, yeah, more.
Just 3 times, about 3 times.
And the F-Pace, the F-Series pickup truck, America's best-selling vehicle line, almost sold 900,000 units in the United States in 2017. That was close to 35% of Ford's total U.S. sales. Ford has moved to using more aluminum, and of course we know that Land Rover has extensive use of aluminum for years.
And I think that's perhaps where Ford got this idea to use more aluminum is from their tenure of owning both Jag and Land Rover.
And moving on to Land Rover's Gerry McGovern wins Designer of the Year. Gerry McGovern, Chief Design Officer, was named Designer of the Year at the Festival Automobile International. Awards are decided by 15-strong jury from the automotive industry, sport, architecture, fashion, design, culture, and the media.
So he was judged by a jury of his peers.
Correct.
Okay, then.
The president of the festival, Automobile International, said Gerry McGovern has been recognized by the jury of the 33rd Festival Automobile International of Paris for his astonishing masterpiece, the Range Rover Velar, and for his whole career. One of his remarkable achievements is to adapt Land Rover's DNA, a transformation that began with the Range Rover Evoque. The British automotive industry has been reinvented in Gerry's vision, and Land Rover is an incredible success story. Congratulations to him and his team.
Interesting how they use the word adapt to mean the word change.
I like how they included how he included DNA in the quote.
Yeah, well,
there. That's like
yes,
that's right from their PR material. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it's Gerry speak, so you got to throw him a bone, but it's okay. He's changed the look of them, but on the other hand, it's working. It's selling product.
And McGovern replied, or I guess this was in the press release, "It's an incredibly rewarding time to be a designer in the automotive industry and to be recognized by a jury from a wide variety of design disciplines shows the importance of design in all our lives. My team has worked tirelessly to create the most desirable vehicles that our customers will love for life, vehicles that resonate with our customers on an emotional level." Congratulations to Gerry on that award.
Yeah, good for him.
We mentioned a moment ago about Jaguar a little bit, and this article, which is entitled "Jaguar Land Rover Has Its Eggs in Multiple Baskets." I didn't like the title. It's I know why they do some of these titles, but it didn't fit the actual meat of the article. And then this one was
Easter's coming.
This is an interview with JLR's president and CEO for North America, Joe Eberhardt. There, it was mentioned here that this is Automotive Meal magazine. It says, Jaguar Land Rover appear to be nimble enough to quickly turn once the future of automobile starts to come into clear view, having to do with the changes in the industry that are coming, and they think JLR appears to be one of those automakers. And I guess Eberhardt here had some interesting things, I think, to say. Eberhardt is determined to stay the course with the brand's cars, despite the continued growth of the crosshairs. Wow, that's a tough sentence to read. Eberhardt is determined to stay the course with the brand's cars, despite the continued growth of crossovers in the market. Should really read these before.
I like the first version, the growth of the crosshairs.
Quote, we internally debate that a lot, and every time I think the SUV share can't go any higher, it does. We will not give up on cars, and this is specifically relating to Jaguar, I should have added. And we will not give up on sports cars. The F-Type has the soul, the heart, the DNA of the brand.
Oh, dear. There's that word again.
Yes. And I thought you'd appreciate that. Eberhardt knows JLR has to remain as diversified as possible in the powertrain department, and with advanced turbo 4s, diesels, and coming plug-ins, he believes they're well positioned. Like other automakers, JLR has been busy testing its self-driving tech, and Eberhardt concludes by saying, part of our brand experience is the joy of driving. I couldn't see myself not driving a car. Is there some hopefulness there for you, Harold?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, at least he's making it pretty clear that the essence of the brand is about the driving experience and not about just getting somewhere.
Well, I guess there's some hope then especially for Jaguar, that they won't go all away from the joy of driving.
Right, exactly.
So moving on to specific new models in the Land Rover line, the 2019 Range Rover Evoque wears its production body, looks a lot sleeker. So there's a new, as we've already mentioned this before, there's a new Evoque coming. It's going to look a lot like the Velar. It's going to have that.
Imagine that.
Other design features will include deployable door handles, which, unlike the Velar, don't sit flush with the rest of the body. A set of slimmer LED taillights, as seen on the prototypes. And it'll have a longer wheelbase to improve interior room on the rear passengers and luggage space. The new Evoque will come equipped with a broad range of Ingenium petrol and diesel engines. So there's a new one coming. You can see the pictures. We have links to those in the stories. It looks like a small Velar, I think, in some ways, except those door handles will pop out.
Yeah, I'm waiting for those to break.
Yeah.
That should be fun.
Yes. Although it's actually a good thing in some ways for off-roading, but the vehicle was not really designed for mainly off-roading use, because you could see that we're bringing in the mirrors and bringing in the door handles and all those extraneous things on the body would be helpful. But
well, that's one of the things that the hardcore guys like about the D1s over the D2, and that's also carryover from the Range Rover Classic was the flush door handles.
In honor of the 70th anniversary of Land Rover, the Special Vehicle Operations is going to build a limited run of hand-built Range Rover Coupes. The two-door coupe will make its debut at the Geneva Motor Show later this year. According to Alloy and Grit, officially only the interior concept has been revealed, and it looks very plush, I might add. Alloy and Grit has rendered a possible exterior concept. You can see that in their article. Details will come soon, but we know the Range Rover SV Coupe, as it will be called, will be built on the full-size Range Rover platform and will presumably be powered by the 557 horsepower SV Autobiography V8.
Nice.
It's interesting, this article and another one I think was from the Coventry. I'm going to switch to it here. Yeah, Coventry Telegraph. They mention hand-built, and then the Coventry Telegraph mentions hand-assembled. And I think that's the thing that stood out to me. They're only going to build 999, and they're going to...
Yeah, I like that number. That's nice.
Yeah, it is actually. It's pretty cool. Although I think originally, was this supposed to have been a production vehicle, and now it's a limited production vehicle? Was there... Or was it maybe not clear in the early stages?
I think it was somewhat ambiguous in the first stories. Right. Maybe they were testing the waters to see if there was enough response to merit going full production.
Oh, and it's possible too with the changes in the marketplace now. Maybe those gaps that McGovern has mentioned that he was trying to fill, maybe those are closing up.
Or maybe that's just their marketing team deciding that's the size of that particular niche is 1,000 vehicles.
Also, in honor of the upcoming 70th anniversary, we do know that Land Rover is going to restore one of the 3 pre-production Land Rovers, and they're going to show those at the, I don't know where they're going to show them, but those original pre-productions were shown at the model's launch in 1948 at the Amsterdam Motor Show. Royal Automobile Club in the United Kingdom, they have hold of the first production car, and they're going to restore that. At least that's my understanding from this article.
Now this one was built before Huey. Is that what I understand?
Well, I think Huey is a pre-production, isn't it?
I thought Huey was the first production. That's why I'm a little confused now.
Well, let me read you what they have here. For while Huey HUE 166 is famously the world's oldest Land Rover. Again, I'm reading from the article here. This is the first production model, referring to JUE 477.
Right. Which is sequentially after Huey.
It is chassis number 86001 from July of 1948. Was a member of the Works development team and spent its first 2 years at the Solihull factory. February 1950, it had been sold to Professor McEwen of Newcastle University, at which point it gained a registration number. So then it would have gotten JUE 477.
Right. So it could be older than a Huey, just not registered. I'm a little confused as to which one is older than the other.
I'm with you. I agree with you. I mean, they're saying that Huey is the oldest Land Rover, and this is the first production Land Rover. Maybe Huey was one of the pre-productions.
And then where does that put our friend Michael Bishop's prototype that he owns? I guess we need him back on the show to explain to us, because we're confused over here.
JUE 477 in February of 1950 had been sold. Oh, I told you it was already sold to Professor McEwen. And then the next owner was David Fairless, who originally intended to buy a tractor rather than a second-hand Series 1 Land Rover.
What's the difference?
So it was used initially for agricultural work.
Doing important things.
JUE 477 made a brief but highly memorable appearance at Land Rover's 50th birthday celebration, and was inevitably attracted considerable interest, of course. I'm not sure. Maybe we'll do a little bit of had do a little more research and get some clarity on this. But you have,
if any of our listeners know, they should let us know.
Yeah, that's it.
Send us a message.
And now news from India, specifically Darjeeling. Darjeeling has some famed Land Rovers may be phased out. More than 40 Land Rovers have been ferrying tourists and locals to places at altitudes above 12,000 feet or more along the India-Nepal border in Darjeeling district of West Bengal for more than 50 years, may be phased out soon. According to Transport Department rules, no vehicle above 15 years or of age can ply the streets for commercial purposes. And even though they're going to try to give the vehicle owners some loans to get new ones, the owners of the vehicle say there's not enough business for them to pay for the loans throughout the year. So if you're
now, is this a new rule? Because it seems like, for the longest time, the stuff that they run over there is incredibly old, which is kind of really cool in a way.
Yeah, it is. It's not clear in that article, Harold. It says according to Trent, maybe they're finally applying a rule that had been out there for a while. Yeah, the picture they have is looks like a gleaming stainless steel Series 1 in the accompanying photo. So it's kind of cool. So
that's the image that I get in my mind when they talk about Darjeeling, is that everything over there is incredibly old and cool and well maintained.
So if we have any listeners in Darjeeling or familiar with it, drop us a line. Let us know.
There you go. Our inbox will be flooded with answers.
No doubt. I don't know if we have any listeners in India or that region yet.
Yeah, we need to know.
We do. A non-specific Land Rover story, but something that I've personally been following for a while, and I just thought it was interesting information. The title of this article is "Self-Driving Cars Will Kill Things You Love and a Few You Hate." We'll have a link, of course. You can go read the whole thing, but I want to pull out one thing. So the subtitle here is "Get Ready for the Long Goodbye to Car Culture, Many Domestic Flights, and Insurance Premiums." And it's the one under car culture that I wanted to pull out because I had thought this was true, and we have some evidence. Fewer young people are already learning to drive in the U.S., citing the cost of owning a car and the ability to share rides as key reasons, according to a study by the University of Michigan. If that generation eventually loses the need to drive altogether, the link between American pop culture and car ownership will wither. And there's a quote here. We as Americans associate our identity with our car, said Doug Seven, who leads Microsoft's connected and driverless car efforts. When the 20-year-olds become the 40-year-olds and the 40-year-olds become the 60-year-olds, the cultures will shift.
Yeah, I hear you, because there's a certain structure to a conversation when you meet somebody. Typically people say, where are you from? What do you do for a living? My first question is, what do you drive?
We knew it's been changing and it's coming. It's just that it may be we don't have some hard facts that at least in the U.S., fewer young folks are learning to drive. They have some numbers here. Here's a chart. Driving isn't as cool as it used to be. Chart shows licensed drivers as a percentage of their age group population in the U.S. 16-year-olds. They have 16, 17, 18, and then 20 to 24. So if you're a 16-year-old, it looks like back in 1983, 16-year-olds who were licensed drivers was at above 40, maybe almost 50%, and now it's down below 20%, maybe even 10%.
I was in that early bracket myself. Well, I got my driver's license in 1980, but I had my license by 11:30 a.m. on my 16th birthday.
Yeah, I think I got a permit when I was 15. Of course, I think laws have changed here in the U.S., I think.
Right, yeah. Well, in Minnesota, you could get a learner's permit at 15 and a half, I think it was, as long as you were enrolled in a driver's ed class. So I took driver's ed in summer school at 15 and a half, and yeah, I was there.
And to be clear, if you look at this chart, it does end in 2014, but I'm sure the trends are there.
Yeah, close enough. I know that it's becoming less and less of a thing for the young people. I think cars just aren't as interesting as they used to be. Plus, people don't have to go anywhere as much. There's more things they can do on the internet. They can stay home and talk to their friends using their phones.
Yes. It's something I've said that a long time ago, too, whereas the car used to be your method of independence and gaining your independence and going out and seeing the world. You now can do that through a computer or through your handheld computer.
Oh, right. And, when we were kids, the only thing there was to do in my little town was just go driving around. So somebody had to have a car.
So maybe this will be the last Land Rover podcast on the planet, too. And that is the news for January 2018. In the middle of February, I attended the Maine Winter Romp. All the stories I'd heard about the event are true. The great trails, a variety of trucks, the attendance, the food. Big G's. Big G's has these huge sandwiches. They are exactly what you've heard. Actually, they're probably more. These sandwiches were humongous, Harold. I mean, so you go to, everybody meets up at Big G's. I ended up, by the time I got there, I could only really attend Saturday and Sunday. But everybody meets in the morning at Big G's, has a breakfast, which is you stand in line, you go up to the counter, you order your food, and you order breakfast, and then you order a lunch, and they know that you're taking the sandwich for lunch, and they'll put it into a bag for you, and you put it off to the side, and then you get your breakfast, which is massive. They have these pancakes I had eggs and toast, but the pancakes were as big as the plates and massive. Like folks would get one pancake for 4 kids, and they'd have leftover pancake.
Dang.
Yeah. So I got the sandwich, and I went to the counter, and the lady says, "Do you want a half or whole?" And I was like, "I want a whole sandwich. I want the full experience." she, man, these things are huge.
The sandwich gets you all the way to Quebec?
Actually, I ate on the trail, eventually got into the trail, and I had maybe a third of that sandwich because I had eaten enough at breakfast. And then on the trail, I had a third of that. And then that sandwich went all the way to Quebec with me. And then 2 adults and 2 children ate the rest of that sandwich.
Wow.
Yes.
That's pretty much like what I do when I cook a big pot of stew or whatever, and that's my dinner for a week.
Yes, absolutely. So if you never go to Maine for the Winter Romp, if you never go to Maine for any Land Rover stuff, go just for Big G's. Sandwiches were fantastic. Oh, they make their own.
That sounds like a tourism thing. Come to Maine for the sandwich, stay for the off-roading.
Bruce told me a story, and it's not in the interview that's coming up, that the guy that owns Big G's, they make their own bread there, which is another nice thing. But he wanted his own bread.
Only way to get it big enough, right?
Exactly. And he made his own pans. Went to a local steel fabricator, made his own pans out of steel,
Nice.
Had it folded. I don't know how big they are. I'm going to say 2 or 3 inches high. He told me the size and I forget, but it was like that big. They were these massive. They have
call out the aluminum gutter truck to make you some baking pans, right?
they have these look like challah bread. If you're familiar with challah bread, it's kind of like braided, and they look the size of a large beehive. They're massive.
Wow.
The Danish, like the glazed Danish. I don't know what they're called in the rest of the world, but for us, a glazed Danish, Harold, had to be the size of a small turkey. I'm not lying. They're massive. I should have taken pictures and I didn't. So everything you've heard.
So not the place to go if you're on a diet.
No, not at all. Not at all. Things you've heard about the food, the weather, everything was true. The only problem is with the weather there. There was no snowstorm. There was no rain. There was no ice. There was no wind when I was there. It was winter, but it was sunny and it felt warm. There was That's
not a bad thing when you're trying to get somewhere in the woods to have
the snow,
decent sunshine and stuff so you can see where you're going.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you had to have sunglasses on if there's so much glare. And,
oh yeah.
And the snow was dry, but not too dry and not too wet. It was in many ways perfect.
What were the temps like?
Right around freezing, I want to say. It was
warm.
Yeah, it started out, I think, below freezing when I got there, and maybe it stayed below freezing the whole time. I'm trying to remember now. It's the area around Bruce's house, where it's like the main congregation area, was like an ice rink. It really was all completely icy. It was that was interesting too.
You almost wonder if he does that on purpose just to make it the right experience.
Maybe. I was able to catch a ride in a Defender 110 piloted by Eric, and I said piloted on purpose because he's a pilot. It was nice to meet up with some of our listeners. I handed out stickers, and I actually got to talk and see in person Jeff Aronson.
I was going to say, Jeff was there. Do you ride with him at all?
I did not ride with him, but I did meet with him, talked to him a couple times, and had breakfast with him. There is a link to the photos that I took at the Romp on our website, so you can go check those out. Bruce Fowler, host of the Romp, lives in Benton, Maine. And his home is like a farmhouse with an attached garage, and it houses a Series 1. But his daily driver is a Range Rover Classic with nearly 700,000 miles of use. He shows me the Maine on their registration cards. They put the mileage on the cards. And he made a point of pulling it out and saying, "See here, look, it had 689,000 miles on it."
What is that in head gaskets?
I think he said there were 2 engines in there, but I didn't ask on head gaskets. So I believe it's on the second or third engine.
Well, that sounds about right, actually. A couple, 2 to 250,000 on an engine's pretty good, really.
And I forgot to mention when I was talking to Bruce, he told me about the mileage in the Classic, and I forgot to mention that in our interview. I'm sorry about that. We sat down across from each other in his kitchen table. He made me a cup of tea. You'll hear his refrigerator in the background, and our Pax did a great job of cleaning up the audio, but you still might hear something, and that's probably going to be the refrigerator. And I also want to thank his family and friends who were in the other room. They did a nice job of keeping quiet so we could get the interview in. And much like his
duct tape's a wonderful thing.
Yes. And there was much duct tape. So his refrigerator, much like his vehicles, is a vintage model. It's from the 30s or 40s. And I know he's changed the door seal once, but little else. He'll replace the refrigerator in due time. Welcome back to the Centresteer podcast. I'm live in Benton, Maine. Sitting across the table from me is Bruce Fowler. Bruce is the, proprietor, beginner, founder of the Maine Winter Romp. Welcome to the show, Bruce.
Well, thank you. Thanks for asking me to be here.
Yeah.
Proprietor.
Well, you asked me. It's more like I'm here. This is your house.
Let's fight. Swords. No.
How did the
host? I think would be
host is appropriate.
Host is appropriate.
What? How many winter romps have there been?
Oh boy, you want to start an argument?
Sure. Best thing.
Officially, the Rovers North news editor coined Winter Romp in the fall of '95. So the first official Winter Romp being named Winter Romp was in '96. Unofficially, in the winter of '88, 3 of us went out on these very same trails on President's Weekend because we had nothing to do. And then we did it the following year, and it snowballed, and we all invited a few of our friends, and then the Unity College students caught on to it, and they all had four-wheel drive vehicles, and it just snowballed down to 96 when the world was invited to it.
What were the first vehicles for that first romp, and who were the participants, if you can name names?
Well, the names aren't important, but I had a Series 3, blue Series 3. Bill was a Series, I don't remember, because his grandfather had 2A, so I think he was here in a Series 3 also, and then there was a Scout, International Scout.
Oh, yeah.
Ed had. So it was 2 Rovers and an International Scout.
Nice,
first
nice.
year.
And that was here on the property?
Right here on the property.
And then just for fun for a weekend, and then it's gone from there. So tell us about the romp now. How's it? What has become of the romp? I guess mainly, how did it become kind of? It's like an event now. It's like a thing. People talk about it all year.
It is. It's called I call it the Reginald Perrin event.
I know the reference. The fall and rise of Reginald Perrin.
Exactly.
I've seen that. Yes.
But anyways, that and a little bit of a very peculiar practice also can be thrown in there for the nightlife. But
that's a different. That would be Centresteer After Dark.
Okay.
It's a different show.
But nothing has changed with Winter Romp since 1988. It really hasn't. There's no set agenda. People show up and they just go off-roading on the trails. There's some support services now that weren't there, as far as having volunteers provide warming huts and hot drinks out on the trails, and local businesses opening on their days off to feed us. Hotels that will block off an entire hotel a year in advance to make sure the majority of us stay under one roof. That's what's changed from the beginning. But the philosophy of the event, which is basically come out, here's the trails, have fun, help the person you're with, get together as a group, attack a difficult trail, and use teamwork to get through it. That's been in effect since day one.
Yeah, which is, and it's on the website too. There is that philosophy of the Maine Winter Romp. Yeah, it was shortened basically down to no bitching. Is that
no whining?
No whining. That's it. See, I've done some research.
That's the crying call, chant.
The clarion call.
Yeah.
Or a clarion call? I'm not sure, but yes.
Our war chant.
War chant.
No whining.
No whining. No whining. I don't think I heard any. I don't think I heard any real whining.
Everyone
Not
comes
on the
out
trail.
and smiles. That's what
They do. And the weather this weekend was phenomenal.
It was a treat.
It was. Is this normal?
No. Actually, we've never had weather like this previously. Now, as bizarre as it sounds, we have never had the same conditions twice. It's never happened. Last year, we received 2.5 feet of snow the week of Winter Romp. I mean, I was plowing for like 36 hours before, as people were still arriving, just to try to make room to get them in here. We're running around with bulldozers, making sure, even out here at the house, to make sure there's places for people to park. The year before, we had less snow than this. There's just a spattering of snow because we had a thaw a couple weeks earlier and melted all the snow. We'd only had one small storm. It was brutally cold. It was 35, 36 below at night and probably 10 degrees above Fahrenheit during the day. And the year before that, it snowed one day and rained another day. So every year the conditions are different.
So sunny and blue skies is not normal.
In Maine,
in
February,
no. And temperatures that you could actually, not much wind either.
Correct.
Because we could actually stand outside, people would hang out and watch the trucks go by and chat. And wow, so this is a special.
That's why there's Uber smiles out there. Everyone's like, we don't want to go home. I says, we don't, these conditions are ideal.
Right.
Perfect conditions, every trail's open.
Right.
No one has an excuse that there's too much snow to get onto a trail.
And so how many different trails do you have now? Because you started with one, it was a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
And now we're up to 3, I got 2 or 3? Or is it just two? Well, I meant like two main sites. You have the site here at the house, and then you have
You're saying staging locations.
Okay, well let's call them staging locations.
No, there's here at the house and up on the power line on the Dickey Road. But trail-wise, I think we have 16 trails open this year.
That's nice and impressive, because we went out and so Dickey Road is in fact a real actual road, right?
It is.
It's unmaintained
town road.
Okay.
Yes. Basically, the town owns the road. It's a public access road, but the town doesn't use the resources to keep it open.
Okay.
Weather.
Gotcha. Yeah, it certainly looked like it.
We ran a bulldozer down.
Did you? Okay.
Friday morning.
Yeah, keep it big.
Well, we have 100 vehicles, and basically the Dickey Road's our M25.
Right.
And we don't want it to look like a Monday morning on the M25. So if we don't plow Dickey Road, 100 vehicles are going to head out on the road and stop.
Right.
And then they spend half of the day get moving again, which is not why they're here. They're here to be able to take the road out to the trails, get on the trails, then get stuck or whatever, and not impede anyone else's progress.
And then, so you have two staging areas. You have two staging areas. You have trails here at the house. Then you have at the Dickey Road. You have that's where the warming station is, right? And that's a new thing this year.
It's not.
That's not okay. That's in the last few years, I guess.
This is either third or fourth year.
Okay.
It's been out there.
Yeah.
And then there was a hiatus of 3 years. And before that, we had a camp further up in the woods that we used to use for warming hut and staging there also, but unfortunately he passed away.
Oh, sorry to hear that. Yeah.
So all of the Romp, we had 3 years, 2 or 3 years without a warming hut.
And now you do it yourself, pretty much. You have volunteers that help out with the event. And how many are those folk locals, or do you have people coming from out of town?
No, it's local not-for-profits that come up and run the warming.
Yeah. And any of your local friends, I take it, because you've got a couple of friends in there that have Land Rovers, I assume they chip in?
Chip in with what?
Help,
Yes.
just to, is that where you get the bulldozer from, or is that helps you with?
That's a checkbook, I think.
Gotcha. Oh, okay.
No,
gotcha.
I hire a local contractor to do that.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, that's
Again, that's booked a year in advance now. But he knows next year. President's Friday, he's out there with the bulldozer.
Gotcha.
Unless there's no snow.
Right.
That's pretty simple.
Right. And then you're doing trail maintenance year round too, I assume. Is that where and volunteers help out with that?
Yeah, that's all volunteer.
Yeah.
Our trails are in resource protection within the Sebastopol watershed. Our trails cannot be used if the ground is not frozen. Once the frost sets in, the trails are frozen, the ground's frozen, then the call goes out, and volunteers from all over New England and in New Brunswick and Quebec come down on weekends, and we start pecking away on the trails, cutting windfalls, flagging them, renaming them for that year, so on and so forth, and modifying them. So the trail network slowly evolves because the window is so small to work on them. But that's all done with volunteer labor, and all those folks that volunteer to work on the trails are here using them. They're called pre-romps.
Pre-romps.
2 or 3 pre-romps a year.
Right. Sure. A lot of other clubs do that before their events too, and they'll have volunteers come out, cut trails, clear trails, and get ready. Okay, that's cool. Nice. What other things occur at Romp maybe that I didn't get to see? I mean, there's I think a little more of a social activity also along that lines, and then people out after the trail runs. Hopefully, if they get back at a reasonable time, right?
The social part. First of all, there's the repairs.
That's true. I should have mentioned that. That's right. Yes, people seem to are using your tools in your garage area.
We usually don't have major breakdowns, but people will have breakdowns or failures out on the trail, and after they get off the trails, they will try to repair their vehicles and go back out the next day or drive it home. So evenings and late nights are taken up in the workshop repairing vehicles. Nightlife, different groups from different segments of the states have their own little parties within the hotel. So the hotel gets blocked off for different party venues or entertainment venues.
Right.
And we have, usually every year we have some sort of British or ex-military ambulance or large troop carrier as a designated drunk bus so people can go downtown
Nice.
and hit the clubs and restaurants and that, and not worried about jeopardizing their license getting back.
Right. I was unaware that there was a drunk bus. That's good. It's a good idea. That's a good idea. Social seems to be a big part of the event. Has that always happened since the beginning? The kind of the social gathering, it seems to be almost really mainly the core of it in many ways. Yeah. What do you see happening in the future? The event has definitely grown. I mean, I think you only had 3 people back in '88, and then how many people did you have? And how many people were trucks did you have in '96? And how many? 17. And now we're up to how?
Because everyone keeps asking me.
There you go. See, you looked it up.
There were 17 people in '96.
Okay.
And of those 17 people, I would say at least 10 of them are here this year.
Cool. That's a nice.
I would have to stop and do a count. I know at least 10 of those people in '96 were here.
And how many trucks did we have this weekend, or people do we have this weekend?
Gerry is still out this weekend.
Right.
The official vehicle counter had 90 confirmed vehicles by 5 o'clock on Friday. How we come up with our statistics is we photograph the front and back of every vehicle every day of the event. And then afterwards, we go over the photos and count how many different vehicles are there. Registration, pre-registration wise, we were up to 107 vehicles on Thursday. Then Friday, there was 4 cancellations, but there was, I think, like 5 late arrivals. And then there was 2 unexpected, we got here, sorry, we have to leave, and other people that for reasons couldn't leave. So there's like another 2 or 3 cancellations. There's a plethora of people that have no intention of ever registering, and they're here every year, so we don't have that number. So unofficially, for the past 3 years, I say there's around 100 vehicles here.
Okay. So, yeah, that's impressive. It's impressive. What do you see happening in the future? And do you see this continuing as it has, or do you see things changing?
I'm hoping some organization will buy the rights of it out and do a theme park and take it over so I can retire. But until that happens,
until Disney comes and gives you a check, right?
Right.
For the Winter Romp experience.
That's right.
They'll open up a little wing down Disney just for that.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Fake snow.
Yes.
They can do
both
all that.
in California and in Florida.
Florida year round. They could and Tokyo Disney and
that's right. There's one in Paris.
Disney in
now.
Paris. That's right. Yeah.
We've expanded. Nothing's going to change. Trails are our biggie. We work now, and there is some thought that goes behind this throughout the year. Is you have 100 vehicles that want to access your trail network all at the same time. So you have to build your trails with spurs and offshoots so that you can throw 100 vehicles at it and the woods will absorb them. So people can go out in groups of 7 or 8 on a trail and not be hindered by another group that's intersecting your trail or breaking down or stuck or whatever, and the ensuing bottleneck ruins the day. So that is always on my mind all year round when I'm thinking about the romp or trying to work on a part of the romp is the trails. We've started another trail network across the street. In fact, some of the folks from southern Maine that worked on it want to know if they could use it this year. And I was like, no, it's still off wraps because there's one way in and no way out yet. Because the event keeps growing, and we don't know how to stop it from growing. And,
I suspect having me come talk to you and telling the world about it is not going to help that.
Yeah, that's the Reginald Perrin curse.
Yes. Wow, 2 Reginald Perrin references in one show. Well done. Look at that.
Ta-da. We haven't gotten to the 2 Ronnies yet.
No.
The political satire at the end of the night.
Yes, that's right.
But we're building another trail Right. We're building another trail network across the street so that folks can be broken up even more. That's the goal of Romp, is to keep it the same. Don't politicize it. Don't commercialize it. Just provide interesting, challenging, and fun trails in the area. And that's basically the goal. It's just to give them more trails.
More trails, yeah. And then this year you expanded to non-Land Rover vehicles could attend. Is that correct?
We did with a twist.
Yeah.
It's everyone wants to attend Winter Romp, and that's understandable. I personally have no problem with inviting everybody. Okay, I hate to say no, to be snobbish and say, no, you can't have fun with these guys. That's so against my grain from day one. But unfortunately, there has to be some controlled chaos here. And if you want to participate with a non-Rover vehicle, how we sorted that out is if you can find someone that was here the previous year in a Rover on the trails, and that person intends to be here this year, they can sponsor you. If they're willing to sponsor you, then we picked a nonprofit, and this year it was Habitat for Humanity. You would have to make a $100 donation to the local chapter of the nonprofit that we picked for that year. Then we'll let you attend. That way, if you really want to attend, we've given you an avenue to pursue it. It also makes the Rover people content that the non-Rover people are contributing to the local scene to be here.
And was that successful this year?
Really was.
Yeah, good.
Everyone, even the people that donated are happy. The Rover people are happy that the non-Rover folks are contributing. The Habitat for Humanity was building a house locally and needs more funds. It's very happy. So it's win-win for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Good. So you mentioned the community aspect of the event, and that's certainly very much the case as you see here, because it seems like all the Land Rover people come to the town for 3, 4, 5 days, and it seems like they take over the town. Has there been any issues, concerns there? Is everybody generally happy that there's? I suspect not much goes on in the wintertime, and so
sure.
then
it's
you
a
get
college town. There are things that go on, but
right.
It'd be rather Pollyannic for me to say that everyone loves us.
Why not? Why do people not love us? I don't.
They're out of town. They're exploiting our natural resources. There's the naysayers. There's people that don't like anything.
Right.
They complain because they have to get up in the morning and live for another day.
Right.
I mean, that person's always out there.
Right.
But all in all, the community supports us. If you were, I don't remember. I think you were here yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Our local, our neighbors, my neighbors who volunteer the use of their property, come out and join us, have breakfast with us, and they support us on their property, hopefully not destroying it. The local restaurants and they open up on their days off to make sure we're fed, and this is a shot in the arm for them in the coldest, darkest month of the year. So business-wise, they like us, I would think, for the most part, and we go out of our way to do locally owned venues. Okay, we're in a chain hotel, but it's individually owned. It's franchised to a chain for that name. All the restaurants we go to, all the restaurants on the list are privately, locally owned. Our T-shirts are screened in a garage on the next road over, by a local individual. So the fact that people come from away and all of the activities are based on local products, local individuals, I think the community appreciates.
Yeah, seems like it. I mean, I highly recommend Mr. G's. Mr. G's?
It's Gerry Mishu. It's Big G's.
Big G's, that's it. It's Big G's. The sandwiches.
Gerry Mishu.
The sandwich, I'm still eating it. That's just massive. This thing's huge.
Yes. And they bake the bread on site. Gerry made the bread pans himself out of sheet stainless steel.
Wow.
In his friend's machine shop. He made the bread pans so he could make big bread to bake big sandwiches.
And I mean, they had actually looked like a challah bread from the way it looked to me, but it looked like the size of a large beehive. I mean, this thing was just massive. I bought a cookie just because it had to be. It wasn't even silver dollar. It was,
their sticky buns look like the beehive.
Oh, those sticky buns they're huge. It's like a meal for a family of 4 for a week.
Yes, I keep telling you, I need an insulin dispenser for the non-diabetics.
It's exactly it.
If you eat that, your sugar count's going to
go through the roof.
Spike.
Yeah, that would be out of control. Any other anticipated differences or things you'd like to fix or update for the event? I mean, it seems like it's a well-oiled machine at this point.
Hotel reservations would be nice to somehow streamline that a little bit, but I can't see that happening.
Right. That's just the way
I work with the hotel where we reserve it for a year in advance, and every year we run into the problem because when you're in the hospitality business, even though someone's trying to book a group of rooms, they have to pay attention to the people that are there prior and after you, because someone might want to arrive a day early, or someone that's there is going to be waylaid and with their project and have to stay 2 or 3 days. So there has to be some give and take there, which to accommodate everybody. And every year for the past 5 or 6 years, because the event has grown, and we do reserve the largest hotel in town for 4 days, we have problems with mill workers that are in fixing a machine or something that think they're going to be done Friday, but they're going to have to work till Monday, so they need to extend their stay. So that cuts into our reservations, and that's this mess. The mess is the hotel.
Right.
It's not a huge mess. It's just Thursday night, I'm like, I got to deal with the hotel. You're on the line with the registration desk and the manager, and we're like... And it's like, well, these 3 are supposed to leave on Friday, but the paper mill needs them on Monday. And it's like, can we call the other hotel across the street and pull them out of their room and move them over there? So the hotel's the only...
this is the big problem.
Yeah, it's the bump in the carpet.
Gotcha. Right. Well, and I should thank you. You made sure I had a reservation at the hotel, so thank you for that. That was... you're like... There's me. I don't no idea what's going on.
You need to thank the person who lost his transmission that you got the room.
Okay, all right. Whoever lost their transmission, thank you very much.
Yeah, and missed the event.
Yes.
You were able to sneak in.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, that happened at SCAR last year. I was going to fly down to SCAR. Well, I did fly down to SCAR, and all of a sudden there was a bunkhouse open available for me. I'm like, oh, great. I don't have to sleep outside, get worried about a tent and all that. Turns out it's because Jeff Aronson didn't go. So I got like, I think I know whose bunkhouse I got. They're like, okay, thanks. Yeah. Good deal. So I finally saw Jeff this weekend. So let's go back. How did you arrive in Maine? Because I know you're originally not from Maine, and how did Maine? And then specifically, we want to know is how did you get into Land Rovers? What was your first truck? And how did you get the green disease?
Good question. I had a green car before the Land Rover.
Hey.
My first car was an R16, a 71 R16. Great little car. It did get 50 miles to the gallon, and it was a 4-speed on the column. And you would wager people $1 that there was a 4-speed on the column. There's no such thing. So bingo, you got a whole week's worth of gas money to go back and forth to school, because gas was 53 cents a gallon,
right.
And $1 worth of gas in an R16 that got 50 miles to the gallon would get you back and forth to school all week.
Nice.
And to now today, years later, they're struggling to get a vehicle to reach the 50 mile per gallon range. It was an old R6. It was getting old, and it had no heat. And I was going to Yukon. I was at Yukon, and we had an ice storm late in the fall, and I have no heat in the car. And actually got a piece of wood holding the heater flap up on the hood, because the heater flap had a cable that opens a air scoop on the front of the vehicle to force air in. There was just the anemic blower. But anyways, I had no heat. This was before Thanksgiving, U.S. Thanksgiving. We had our little family gathering. Actually, my father was still alive then. So yeah, the whole family was there. And my grandfather had a car dealership in Bridgeport. And back then, when you took a vehicle in trade, there were no auto auctions. If you took a vehicle in trade, you had to, one, sell it. And if you couldn't sell it, then you gave it to the Bridgeport Public Works, and they used it for fill in a road project somewhere or whatever. So throughout Bridgeport area, all of the built-up roads have automobiles underneath them because they were using them for landfill.
All right.
So I was like, hey, I need a car with heat. And he says, well, we have this Land Rover. We spent on the lot 6 or 7 months. He says, that's probably the only thing you can afford, because my grandfather had no intention of giving me the car. I would pay for it. So I wound up with a 1973 Series 3.
Ooh, nice.
And I was only 6 years old then.
Yeah.
I just dated myself. See? Okay.
There we go. Okay.
So that was my first Land Rover, and I actually drove that until I moved to Maine, and the local garages here said you can't get parts for it, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, they talked me into selling it, and I bought an FJ45 in San Diego and brought it here, and it rotted out in 3 years, and wound up buying a Series 2 to replace that. The Series 2 was upgraded to the late 2A, and then I bought the 2A pickup truck. And then Jesse Ware's son, Jess, who's here today, bought my Series 2, and that lives on today as the yellow kitty that you saw this morning.
Yeah. That was yours.
No, chunks of it were mine.
Okay.
It was the donor vehicle to build hers because
she was on the trail ride with me
Right.
with us yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah.
A 20-something Bruce really stressed 1960 Series 2 vehicle. So by the time Jesse Jr. bought it, which I think I sold to him for $100, the whole vehicle, it was need for a total rehab. He decided, being a student, he didn't have the resources to put into it, so Matt had it, and his wife wanted a vehicle, and that's a whole other story. Matt can explain that if you can attack Overland Engineering sometime for a podcast. And then the opportunity came to buy the Range Rover, and I bought that for my long-distance Voyager. Oh, in the Series 1. Let's back up. I'm getting ahead of myself. Quickly, I bought the Series 1, which came from some family friends that bought it new in 1956 to oversee their woods operations. And the person that bought it had passed away, and his son was never really going to use it again, so they offered it to me. And that was already beat to death because it had spent its entire life in the Maine woods and as an off-road vehicle. So I made it my off-road vehicle, but now I needed some way to bring it to events like to Mar and so on and so forth, and all the events in Canada I go to. So I had to buy the Range Rover to tow the Series 1. So that's how I wound up with the Range Rover. And other than a few work-related vehicles, pickup trucks and so forth, I predominantly have just had the Land Rover products.
And how many do you have now? Like what's the mobile? I guess how many do you have, and how many are functional?
I have the Series 1, which is my off-road vehicle and is functionable. My late 2A and 2A pickup truck are both in hibernation.
Okay.
I have 2 that are functioning and 2 that are waiting for attention, which they will receive.
Right.
So 2.
And the Range Rover is part of that. Just I was making my check marks here.
Yeah. The Range Rover is my daily driver.
Daily driver. So tell me about the Series 1. So what did you do to the Series 1? What is
Nothing.
Nothing. It's just
It has its original wires, points, and condenser in it. I had to change the original spark plugs out of it though. Nothing to it.
Wow.
Probably we're guessing has around 28,000 miles on it now.
That's it.
Yep. It is original. So original it hurts.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have one straight body panel on it either.
Well, I don't think it did originally either, did it?
Well, they were a little straight. Yeah. I've done nothing to it. I changed the oil.
Yeah.
In fact, other Series 1 owners have warned me that my negligence towards it is going to be detrimental to its longevity. They're like, it's going to just die on you. But no, I I changed the fluids. My brake shoes are dragging, so it's in the workshop now for me to change the shoes out before I go back out on the trails with it, because I don't want to scar the drums up, because it's whatever. No, it's maintained, though it doesn't look it.
Right.
But it is extremely original.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. The fact that it's still original and has that, even so, it only has 20,000 miles. Even 28,
around 28. Yeah.
Even being a Maine woods vehicle for all those years, that's also includes.
It was in the Maine North Woods, and the family owned a large timberland and a sawmill. And they used the vehicle. The sawmill didn't operate in the winter because the roads to the town were not maintained. So spring, summer, and fall, the vehicle was used to check on the woodcutting crews and operations. And then it got stored in the sawdust barn shed in the sawmill for the winter, basically.
Okay, so it didn't really get a lot of mileage even then.
Right. It never saw a paved road.
It never saw a paved. That makes sense. Okay, never saw a paved road.
It was always on tote roads, twitch roads.
Okay, then you got it. And was it your daily for a while?
Never.
Okay, it was always.
It's out there. It looked. Yeah. That's how it looked when I got it.
Yeah,
okay. It has not.
I saw it. Yeah, it was okay. I thought. Yeah, I mean,
it is road legal.
Yeah.
And I flat tow it. I mean, have a tow bar hitch that's been welded to the front bumper, so I do throw it behind the car, and it's been all over the place.
Off it goes. From
Nova Scotia to southern Virginia.
Yeah. How do you compare it to things that most people are familiar with? Series 1s are still, I think, kind of rare for most people in these days. How do you see it stack up against, say, Series 3 or Series 2? I'm not even going to ask about that.
I'm going to answer. It's a very nimble vehicle, and if you know how the vehicle operates, it's very nimble on the trails. An example would be at the Moose Trophy, an event in Nova Scotia. Eric Bouchard from Quebec City has a totally built D90. It is a really nice truck. We were on the extreme trails. I was in Timbits, the Series 1, and there's this totally built D90. And at the end of the day, in exasperation, he says, I have this big built truck, and this vehicle with no modifications did everything I did today.
So it's capable.
It's capable. You have to know its limitations. You're talking about a very small engine. Yeah. It's very torquey. So you can't power up a hill, but you might have to, ladder back it a little bit to get up there. So
right. And do a different kind of
mental finesse to get through the obstacle.
Does it beat you up more than say driving a Series 3?
Oh no,
we're the same.
Series 1s, 2, and 3s basically all ride the same.
That's what I figured. I was just I know there's some fundamental differences.
They're modified horse and buggy suspension system.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yes.
But mildly modified.
Yes. Since the 1880s, it hasn't much changed. Yes. Yeah. Instead of using leather, we'll use some steel to kind of hold things up. I mean, there are some fundamental differences though between the Series 1 and the Series 2. I thought, at least in the suspension and drivetrain and stuff. Is that not really? No. Okay.
The suspension and the drivetrain are basically the same from Series 1 through Series 3.
Okay.
In 1960, they upped the 2-liter F-head, which had exhaust valves in the block, to an overhead cam 2.25 petro and diesel engine. So that was the big upgrade in 1959, 1960, was they gave it a little more power. And then with the 109 station wagons in 67, they took the straight 6 and put it in there, which gave it even a little more power, but it was a bigger vehicle. The suspension, I can order springs, I can order springs for Series 3 and put them on the Series 1, okay? The shocks on my Series 1 are the same as the Series 3. The suspension has not changed. The drivetrain has not changed. It's the same transmission transfer case setup. True, by Series 3, there was a full synchronous transmission, whereas only 3 and 4 were synchronized before that. I mean, there are little upgrades over the years, but fundamentally, I can take the transmission on my Series 1 out and put it in the Series 3. I can take the transfer case out of the Series 3 and put it in the Series 1.
So which do you prefer? Do you have a preference? Does it depend on what you're going to be doing?
I don't fall in love with material objects.
I don't think that's true.
It is true. The vehicle works.
Or do we need to define what love means? But yeah. maybe that's
Not
a
with
better
a chunk of iron.
That might be a better question.
But I look at them as tools. My philosophy in life's pretty whacked anyways, but they're tools. If I'm going to be off-road in the woods, I want the Series 1. And the Series 1 does what I want it to do. And if it doesn't do what I want it to do, I somehow ignore that. If I'm going to New Jersey, I'm going to take the Range Rover because that is capable of doing the job. If I need to go pick up lumber at a lumber yard, I'm going to take the 109 pickup truck. All my vehicles have a purpose, and I'm content with how they work.
The right tool for the right job.
Right.
Or right job for the right tool. Yes. Yeah,
Same
right
difference.
tool. Same difference. Same thing, yeah.
So, but no, I don't. And I won't go into mourning if one of them blows up or whatever. I'll just go out and find another one to replace it.
I hesitate to ask this, but I think I should. What's your thoughts on the more modern Land Rover lineage? And I guess that would be anything, maybe say from the Discoveries on. Like, do you ever see yourself owning a Discovery, or?
I can see it. No, yeah. Well, I can't see a Discovery being practical, but I could see having a new Range Rover or newer Range Rover. It would be foolish for me to even think that my 30 going on 31-year-old classic is going to be the only long-distance Voyager I'm going to have for the rest of my life. Reality check here. It is going to stop performing the way it's supposed to. And it'll probably be sooner than later. I mean, it's 30 years old.
Right.
I will have another Land Rover product. It'll be a modern product. And I'm fine with that. I know nothing about it. I was driving a new one last year, a new Sport. I couldn't drive it because, one, I'm an old fart now with trifocals, and the dash keeps changing, and I have to keep adjusting my head to read the console. I've never played a video game in my life, and the steering wheel is set up like a video game console. You got to use your thumb on the potentiometers and buttons and all that, and I don't know how to do that. I just have my cruise control, which is 2 fingers on my Classic. Life's adaptable. I will adapt to a new vehicle. They intrigue me. They can do so much more. How will they be able to do it for 30 years? Probably not. But, this is 2018 now, is it?
It is.
Kind of have to keep moving forward. You don't go backwards, and my refrigerator finally says I'm not keeping anything cold anymore. I'm not going to go out and try to find that refrigerator. I will replace it with something new.
And for the listeners, that refrigerator looks to be older than me.
That refrigerator's been there since 1938.
In 38? And it's still functioning.
And it's still keeping everything cold.
And doing its job.
And when it doesn't do its job, it won't be put on a pedestal. It will probably go to I'll call the junk guy, and he'll probably take it away. Mm-hmm. Or one of my friends will want it for nostalgia reasons or something.
Sure.
But not me. It has a function, and when it doesn't perform, it will go away. So the new cars, I'm intrigued with them. They're very capable vehicles. I've off-roaded the new vehicles lightly. I've driven them, and they're fun vehicles. They're comfortable. They're intriguing. Right now, looking at it, I can't see using all the functions. I remember the first time the auto start feature, when you stop at a light, the first time driving old vehicles, I stopped at a stop sign, put my foot on the brake, and the car stopped, and I just went into panic mode. I'm reaching for the shifter,
Right.
And it's like, let off the brake, and the car starts. So old dogs can learn new tricks, and I foresee learning a few new tricks down the road.
That's good. You do. You have an iPhone, which I think was,
So. That is a funny story there. That's Land Rover related.
Oh.
I did not have a cell phone. I was going to, and I've been told for years I need a phone because right now all my calls would go to the office, and I would check in at the office several times a day or whatever and get my messages, and everyone's screaming, get a phone, whatever. So I was going to spend a week in Alberta with a Land Rover friend who had relocated there. I was informed there was no way I was going to spend a whole week in Alberta without a phone. So I basically went to the phone store and said, I need a phone. It has to check email. It has to do blah, 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 blah. And I said, it has to be small. I said, I don't need a freaking phone that's the size of a phone book.
Like my
it
7 Plus.
Fit in my pocket.
Yeah, this fits in my pocket.
So, yeah, I wanted to completely fit in my pocket. But anyways,
I
whatever.
understand.
So I went screaming and kicking from rotary dial phone.
Indeed,
which
you do.
Does work.
Wow,
It is screwed to the wall. It has been there as long as I have, and then before.
You know, the last time I saw a rotary phone like that on the wall, my aunt and uncle, who are now in their 80s, had one, and they have moved into the modern world and removed that.
No, well,
You're not. You're going to keep
it works.
It works. Yeah,
I have a wooden phone with a metal dial on it.
You do, and it still goes.
Yes. So I went from a rotary phone to a smartphone overnight, and it has made my life easier.
Revolutionized your life?
Yes, and it's made Sarah's life a lot easier because if I'm not in the office, I forward my office phone to the phone. It polls email every 90 minutes because I don't want it to poll it any sooner. So every 90 minutes, I can see who's emailed me. Plus, you know,
that explains things. And when
people are still texting my office number, and I don't get the text because
I like that,
which is good. Yeah.
Which is you're okay with that. You're okay. That's fine. Yeah. So do you text then?
Yes.
Okay.
I use all the features on the phone.
So you're going to get the Land Rover app, then that will allow you to open all the car doors so that you can parachute in?
Oh, hell no.
Okay, just checking. And then you're not using...
That's no.
It's too far? You're not using all the features then?
No, I'm not that adventurous anymore. I won't even put the Facebook app in my phone.
That's probably smart.
Winter Romp's the only reason I'm on Facebook, and that's once everything settles down, I won't be on Facebook again until next October.
Right, yeah, that makes some sense.
And everyone that's trying to friend me gets annoyed because I won't friend them. But life, so goes life.
That's just life. That's the way things are.
I live in the land of dial-up. Facebook takes too long to load.
Yeah. There's a lot going on in the background that they're preloading for you and autoplay videos and all sorts of things. Yeah, absolutely. Which of the modern Land Rovers actually appeal to you then? You said the Range Rover, so like how modern are we talking about?
I've driven the 322s a lot, so
okay. Yeah.
I like the 322. It actually handles like the Classic.
Yeah.
I was surprised first time I drove it. I said, it's no different than driving my vehicle, but it's a better suspension, so on and so forth. But yeah, the full size. I like the full size Rover for some reason.
Yeah. That seems...
I've driven the Evoque. You know, I had an Evoque for 3 or 4 days, and I did not. I'm used to a lot of visibility, and it just wasn't there. I mean, I'm used to. You sat in my Range Rover today.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I was very hard pressed. I'm so spoiled with that range of visibility.
Yes.
And
all that glass. Yeah.
Whatever vehicle I have will have as few dark spots, dead spots, blind spots, whatever you want to call it, as possible. And the Evoque wasn't that.
No.
Every time I turned my head, there was something obstructing my view.
Right. Yeah.
The 322 has a few more blind spots than the Classic, but not. But I can sit in that. I can look around, and I want to be somewhat aware of what's around me when I'm driving,
which is smart. Yeah. Although, McGovern would tell you that he really doesn't care about the fact that you can't see out the back, which is like, okay.
That's what the camera's for.
That's the screen. That's right. The screen and the cameras, I still
screen where the heater controls used to be.
Yeah. You mean when it used to be easy to change the heat quickly, where now you have to go through, slide a couple menus and move this and move that. And that is a challenge in the modern world. Finally, Bruce, I would like to thank you for being a Patreon subscriber. You're one of my Patreons. I forgot until we got here, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's the same name. So thank you for being a Patreon subscriber and helping out the show.
I try to support the four-wheel drive community, and I don't have cable or any mass media outlets here in the house, so I go online to see what's happening and keep it local, simple, and small.
Yeah,
and it's refreshing that way. So
good.
I'm glad I'm able to support and sponsor and listen and participate in local homegrown media.
And that's what it's going to be, because I'm going to kind of go your path and kind of keep it non-commercial, unless someone really wants to come in and pay for everything. I'm not going out of my way to go down that path. So I like this kind of organic, do it really for the passion and the
That's
fun.
right.
I mean, it really is, and the social aspects of
That's
it too.
right.
That's very similar to the Romp, is how I see the podcast now.
People say, why don't you charge? And that's one thing we didn't touch on is it cost me about the same amount of money to host Winter Romp as it does to go to any of the other events. So there's no need to charge for it, because if I was going to go to an event, it's going to cost me about what it costs to host the event here.
Right.
So
why not have everybody
do it?
And why not have everybody come to your house then, right?
That's right.
It's easier. Sometimes it's easier to host the party, even though there's a lot of work involved in hosting.
They're paying about as much to come to this event as I would pay to go to their event.
Okay.
So.
Right. Yeah. What does subscription get you, by the way? That's something I forgot to ask earlier. Is that just to alert you that how many people to anticipate? There's no, or do you get I think you get a T-shirt, right? Is that part of the deal?
No, you got to buy a T-shirt.
You still got to buy a T-shirt. Okay.
No money. I refuse to have money. My accountant would kill me if I took money. It'd just another spreadsheet to deal with. No money changes hands at all. Zippo. The reason for the registration is just so I can let the restaurants know how many people will be here. It's just to keep a thumb on where everyone is.
Right, get a sense of things.
Right. If there's an emergency, I know they're in room 318 or whatever or something. That's where the information stops. After the event, it goes in a manila folder. It goes into a big manila envelope, the folder does, and it goes in an upstairs closet with a date on it. I can go pull any year out and tell you who was there, but the information I was told yesterday is more secure than anything in the Canadian government. There's no hacking the data that I have.
That's true. Well, there is possible hacking of the data, but they'd have to actually physically do it. They'd have to come here and
they would have to come here and figure out where I've stored it.
Yes, right. And you can encrypt that, by the way, by putting different information on that on the envelope. And
they have to figure out how to read my writing.
Okay, there's your encryption. There's your data encryption.
The T-shirts, our neighbor makes them in his garage, and they're at cost. I mean, I don't make anything on them. No one makes anything. Mm-hmm. If for some reason that the T-shirts do make some money, which sometimes we round it up, and that extra money goes to the charity that has the honor of hosting the event that year.
Nice. Cool.
I don't want to make any money.
Well, Bruce, thanks for hosting, and thanks for being a good part of the community. I mean, that's you're an inspiration, I think, to others to give back to the Land Rover community and have people come to your house and romp through your romp. I said romp. I didn't even do that on purpose. I did not do that on purpose.
That's how the name came about.
Is that how it came about? Romp.
It was spontaneous. The Winter Romp. It was a spontaneous thing. We're just romping around, and bingo.
There you go.
I think we were joking that it was Bruce's romper room, and I says, "No, we're not going to have a magic mirror here." So let's, anyways.
That's where the name came from.
That's where the name came from.
I guess it was on my mind, and I just said romp. Yeah. Thanks for hosting. Thanks for being part of the community, and thanks for having us here and taking some time to talk. Because I know you. I'm sure in the time we've talked for about an hour here, you have 300 text messages and emails.
Yeah, the phone's been vibrating in my pocket the whole time.
No doubt. Thanks very much, Bruce.
Thank you. I appreciate meeting you. I'm glad to have met you, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to force me to sit down and share with everyone the backbone of the event.
Yeah. Well, maybe listeners will come and meet you next year and come to the romp. So the romp next year is already ready to go, right?
It's already to go. The hotel's already booked. Habitat wants to run the warming hut again next year, so we just got to wait another 362 days and do it all over again.
The countdown has begun.
It's begun.
Thanks again, Bruce.
Thank you.
So thanks to Bruce Fowler for joining us on the show today and allowing us to talk with him about the Maine Winter Romp. If you have an opportunity to go to the Maine Winter Romp, I highly encourage you to go. It's a fun time. It's great people. Try to go when the weather is perfect.
And when you're hungry, apparently.
When you're hungry. Go to Big G's. Wow. Yeah. It was really a lot of fun.
You're still working that sandwich off, aren't you?
And thanks to Tracy for joining us early in the show to talk about Torsten. Unfortunately, Torsten has passed away. Our thoughts go out to his family. And also thanks to Mike Whittier for providing us some information about Torsten. Also, thanks to the One True Packs for his production support and continuing to make the audio sound better. I have heard a number of comments to that effect, and thanks to...
Yeah, because making us sound better is a big job.
It's a full-time job. Visit our website, centresteer.com, that's CENTRE.com, to listen to previous shows and for show notes, which have links to stories discussed in today's show. We're part of the 4x4 radio network, and I invite you to check out the other 4x4 related shows at 4x4 radionetwork.com. I think they've added a new show. I got an email about it this week. I think, but it's J related.
Well, no surprise there.
No. You can connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can directly support the show at patreon.com/Centresteer. If you're not a subscriber, please do so. You'll get the show automatically. And don't forget to subscribe to the Green Oval podcast while you're at it. I think he's still at show number 3, but go check those out. Simon does a great job on the Green Oval podcast. Our next show is number 60. That will be our 5th year. Our listener survey is still open.
That will be the end of our 5th year, actually, and the beginning of our 6th.
Oh yeah, I guess that's right. That's how that goes, yeah.
That is how that goes.
And our listener survey is still open. The link is available on our website and has been tweeted out tweeted and posted to Facebook. So if you get a chance, go out and fill out the survey. We've got a number of responses already. I know Norway, UK, I think one Australia last I looked, and a bunch in the US. So yeah, feel free to chime in. If it's anything, just to tell us who you are and where you're from. It'd be great to hear. And we'll talk about that on our next show.
You need to be clear that you've had a response from Norway, but not necessarily the response from Norway. It's not one per country, folks. Feel free.
Yes. I hadn't thought of it that way. Good. That's good. The survey's for our use only. We're not going to share or sell you the information. We're just going to discuss amongst ourselves. So for the next show, number 60, the 5th anniversary show, we have a great guest planned for the show. We just need to work out the scheduling. Trying to get that schedule here in the next couple of weeks. Thank you for listening to show number 59. I hope you enjoyed it. We'd love to hear from you and what you've been up to in your Land Rover. Until next time, I ask you to share the show with one other Land Rover enthusiast. Wave as we pass by. Our guest this month is Bruce Fowler. Bruce?